The June Dallas sun turned the pool water into a liquid mirror, throwing light back at the sky. I sat in the lounge chair with lukewarm coffee, watching a mockingbird on the far fence. This was peace, or what passed for it after 28 years working with people who made dodging the law their full-time job. Peace, I'd learned, had a short shelf life at Willow Creek Estates, especially when certain families believed the amenities belonged to them alone. "Excuse me." The voice sliced through the quiet like a warrant being served. I looked up. A blonde woman, somewhere north of 40, stood 3 yards away. Prada sunglasses, Michael Kors tote, Lululemon activewear that had never seen a real workout. "Yes?" I kept my voice flat, old habit, never escalate first. "I'm Colleen Draper, HOA president." She didn't offer a hand, just announced herself like royalty, addressing a peasant. "I need to speak with you about violations at your property." I set the coffee down, noticing how she said your property, not your home, as if I were renting space in her kingdom. "What violations?" She pulled a folded paper from her tote, unfolding it with the care of someone presenting evidence at trial. "Your lawn exceeds 3 inches in height. Your trash bin was visible from the street after 8 p.m. last Thursday. And this," she gestured toward my front porch, "unapproved decorative items." She meant the red flower pot my wife had placed 3 years ago. I kept my face neutral. The lawn was cut yesterday. The trash collection was delayed, and the flower pot is within size regulations. Colleen's jaw tightened. "I am this neighborhood. I decide what's appropriate." She handed me the paper with a 48-hour deadline and walked away. I watched her go, taking note of her walk, shoulders back, head high, the gait of someone who'd never been told no. The violation notice was dated yesterday. 3 infractions, none legitimate. In my line of work, I'd learned to spot patterns. Colleen Draper had won control through intimidation. My neighbor David knocked 20 minutes later. "Colleen's intense," he warned. "Best to stay out of her way." "What do you mean, intense?" David sighed. The previous HOA president tried to question some expenses last year. Landscaping bills seemed high. Next thing you know, Colleen's running against him, wins by 3 votes, and Tom moves out 6 months later. David explained violation notices for minor infractions. His fence, mailbox, and basketball hoop, all previously approved. Colleen voided everything when she took power. I thanked David for the heads up. He left, still glancing around nervously. Colleen had picked the wrong neighbor. She underestimated the quiet guy taking notes. The Willow Creek pool opened at 6 in the morning, closed at 10 at night, with rules posted clearly by the gate. No alcohol, no smoking, music below 60 decibels. It was a Saturday afternoon, 2 weeks after my encounter with Colleen, and the Texas heat had climbed to 98 degrees. Water was the only relief. I walked toward the pool with a book and a towel, but stopped 5 yards from the gate. Music, rap blasting from a portable speaker, bass thumping hard enough to rattle the fence, loud laughter, cigarette smoke, and Tyler Draper. Tyler Draper was 22, with bleached hair, cheap tattoos. He lounged with 6 friends, beer cans stacked, cigarette butts scattered. 2 families had just fled. I walked in, set my towel down, and dove into the water. "Yo, old man." Tyler's voice cut across the pool. "This area's reserved." I finished my lap, surfaced near the edge. "Pool's a shared amenity. No reservations allowed." Tyler sat up, grinning like I'd just told a joke. "My mom's the HOA president. I can do whatever I want." His friends laughed. That pack mentality you see in people who've never faced consequences alone. I didn't respond, just kept swimming. But I watched. Noticed how Tyler glanced at the security camera above the clubhouse door. How he turned the music down for 30 seconds when another neighbor walked past, then cranked it back up. He knew nobody ever checked those cameras. Knew his mother would cover for him if anyone complained. After 20 minutes, two of Tyler's friends started doing cannonballs near where I was swimming. Intentional, creating waves big enough to splash my book. Another threw an empty beer can toward the trash bin closest to me, missing by 3 feet, not bothering to pick it up. Tyler called over. "Some people don't get hints." I got out, grabbed my towel, walked past them without a word. As I reached the gate, Tyler yelled after me. "That's right, old man. This is our pool." I went home, changed, opened my laptop and pulled up the incident log, created a new entry, date, Saturday, July 13th, time, 2 p.m. to 2:32 p.m., location, community pool, violations, observed alcohol, smoking, noise exceeding limits, and harassment. I attached photos I'd taken with my phone, timestamps visible. Then I saved the file under a new category, Tyler Draper, in 28 years with the Bureau. I'd learned something fundamental. People who abuse power always escalate. Always. Give them an inch of immunity and they'll take a mile. Tyler wasn't just some spoiled kid. He was a product of a system his mother had built, where certain people were above the rules and everyone else was expected to accept it. I'd seen that dynamic in organized crime, in corrupt police departments, in city councils where one person controlled everything. The specifics changed, but the pattern stayed the same. That evening, walking back from getting mail, I ran into Margaret Walsh. 67, a widow, lived 3 doors down. She was watering her roses. "Jack, do you have a minute?" Her voice was quiet, almost apologetic. I walked over. She glanced around like Colleen might be watching. "I wanted to warn you about Tyler." I nodded. "I met him today at the pool." Margaret's hands shook. "Tyler blocked my garage for 3 hours. Colleen said boys will be boys. I filed a complaint. No response." I saw fear in her eyes, the kind of feeling powerless at home. "Do you still have a copy of that complaint?" Margaret nodded. "Yes, but what's the point? Nobody listens." I chose my words carefully. Sometimes documentation is all we need. Keep everything, every email, every letter, every incident. You never know when it'll matter. Margaret studied my face. "You sound like a lawyer." I smiled. "Not quite, but I've worked with a few." At 11:30, Tyler and his friends threw beer cans at trash bins, waking the block. One neighbor's light flicked on. Tyler gave them the middle finger. I pulled out my phone and recorded. 47 seconds of footage showing faces, license plates, and criminal disturbance all in one frame. I saved the video, labeled it carefully. July 13th, disturbance, Tyler Draper. Then I lay back down. No anger, just patience. Because I knew something Tyler and his mother didn't. People who think they're untouchable always make mistakes. They get comfortable. They get sloppy. They leave trails. And someone, eventually, follows those trails all the way to the end. I'd built my entire career on that principle. This time wasn't going to be any different. I closed my eyes and waited for morning, knowing that the real work was just beginning. I requested public HOA documents under the Texas Property Code. Colleen wasn't sophisticated compared to the criminals I'd investigated. I sent the email on Tuesday evening, citing Texas Property Code Section 209.005, requesting meeting minutes from the past 3 years, financial statements, budget reports, and vendor contracts. Colleen replied 9 days later, 1 day before the legal deadline. "These documents are for board members only." I quoted the exact statute back to her, highlighted the phrase, "any owner may request," and copied the entire HOA board. 3 days later, a USB drive arrived in my mailbox. That evening, I sat at my desk with the lamp on, the only light in the house. Crickets sang outside. Cold coffee sat untouched. I opened the files and started reading. It took 90 minutes to spot the first irregularity. Line item, landscape maintenance. $4,200 per month. Contracted to Greenscape LLC. I Googled them. No website, no reviews. Business registration is 1 year old. Registered address matched Colleen's house. I opened a spreadsheet and kept digging. Clubhouse repairs, $8,900 in March. No invoice attached. No description of what needed fixing. Meeting minutes from that month mentioned nothing about repairs. I highlighted each suspicious entry in yellow. Over 2 years. The questionable expenses totaled at least $40,000. Small enough amounts that individual homeowners wouldn't notice. Large enough to add up to serious money. Classic embezzlement. I'd seen it 100 times in different forms, but the method was always identical. Over the next 2 weeks. 3 more violation notices arrived. My car was parked facing the wrong direction. Except it wasn't. And I had photos proving it. My exterior paint color was non-compliant. Except it was the exact shade approved before I bought the house. An unregistered vehicle sat in my driveway. My work vehicle parked there one night while my car was in the shop. Each notice came with a $75 fine. Each one I contested with evidence. Colleen stopped responding. Jessica Torres, an ER nurse and single mother, stopped me at the mailbox. "Has Tyler bothered you?" She explained late-night knock, online comments about her uniform, report to Colleen dismissed, then retaliation through violation notices. I asked if she still had documentation. She nodded. "I keep copies of everything now. I'm scared that if I don't, they'll find me out of my house." That fear in her voice was the same thing I'd heard from Margaret. The helplessness that came from being targeted by someone with unchecked authority. That night, I reorganized my files into categories: financial irregularities, harassment incidents, HOA violations, witness statements. I imported everything. Margaret's garage complaint, David's story about the previous president, Jessica's timeline of Tyler's behavior and retaliatory violation. The folder grew to 47 files, 238 pages of documentation. Building a case was like building a house. You started with foundation, documentation, and witness testimony. Then you added structure, timeline, and pattern of behavior. Then the roof, the thing that made everything make sense. With Colleen, the roof was simple. She'd turned the HOA into her personal kingdom, used it to enrich herself, and protect her son from consequences. Anyone who challenged that system got crushed. Friday evening, an email arrived. Subject line urgent, hearing required. "Mr. Morrison, due to multiple violations and failure to pay fines, you are required to attend a disciplinary hearing on August 28 at 7 p.m. at the clubhouse. Failure to appear may result in legal action and a lien on your property." I read it 3 times. They were serious. I looked at my monitor, at the folder of documents, 47 files, 238 pages. Every one of them was a violation they'd committed. I typed my reply. "Mrs. Draper, I will attend. Thank you for the notice." Short, polite, gave nothing away. I hit send, then closed the laptop and turned off the desk lamp. I sat in the darkness for a long moment. In 28 years, I'd attended thousands of hearings, hundreds of depositions, and dozens of trials. This would be different. This time I wasn't running the proceedings, but the person who controls the evidence controls the outcome. And I had evidence Colleen didn't know existed. Evidence she couldn't explain away. I walked to the window and looked out at the quiet street. Colleen's lights were still on. She thought she'd won. Thought she'd intimidated me into compliance or driven me toward surrender. She had no idea what was coming. I pulled the curtains closed. In my experience, the most dangerous opponent wasn't the one who shouted threats. It was the one who stayed quiet, took notes, and waited for the right moment. Colleen was about to learn that lesson. And I was about to remind myself why patience, not anger, always won in the end. One thing I'd learned after 3 decades in law enforcement: escalation always came from misplaced confidence. The dangerous criminal was the one who thought he'd already won. Wednesday afternoon, 4 p.m., temperature 102 degrees, heat shimmering off the asphalt in visible waves. I walked to the pool one last time before the hearing, carrying a towel and a book. The water was the only relief. 2 children played in the shallow end while their mother read nearby. I dove in. Cold. Perfect. I swam 2 laps, feeling the tension ease from my shoulders. Then I heard the shout. "Yo, get out!" I surfaced, turned toward the voice. Tyler stood at the gate with 4 friends, carrying coolers and a portable speaker. He pointed at me. "Get out! We're using the pool." When I treaded water, kept my voice level. "Pool's open to all residents." Tyler stepped closer to the edge, his friends spreading out behind him. "Not today. My mom said we can have a private party." I swam to the shallow end, stood up. Water dripped from my shoulders. "Pool rules don't allow private reservations." Tyler moved right up to the edge now, looking down at me. This place would fall apart without my mom's oversight. And I say you leave. For one brief moment, standing there in waist-deep water, I wanted to grab his ankle and pull him in. Wanted to show him what happens when you push someone who's spent a lifetime dealing with actual threats. But I'd built my career on controlling that impulse, on choosing procedure over emotion. "This is my pool too," I said quietly. "I pay HOA fees. I'm not leaving." Tyler reached down and shoved my shoulder. Not hard enough to knock me over, but hard enough to make his point. The mother with the 2 children stood up immediately, grabbed her kids, and hurried toward the exit. She didn't look back. Tyler's friends laughed. I didn't move, just stood there, water lapping at my chest, and looked at him, saw the confidence of someone who'd never faced real consequences. "Is there a problem here?" Colleen's voice cut across the pool area. She stood at the gate in a sundress and oversized sunglasses. Tyler turned to her. "This guy won't leave." Colleen walked over slowly, taking her time. "Mr. Morrison, I think you should go. My son and his friends have reserved the pool." I looked at her. "Under what authority?" Colleen's jaw tightened behind the sunglasses. "I keep this place running, and I'm asking you to leave." I shook my head. "I'm staying." For just a second, something flickered across her face. Uncertainty, like this wasn't following the script she'd expected. She pulled out her phone. "Yes, this is Colleen Draper, HOA president at Willow Creek. I need someone to remove a trespasser from our pool." 15 minutes later, the security guard from the front gate arrived, middle-aged, uncomfortable. "Ma'am, what's the situation?" Colleen gestured at me. "This resident is violating pool rules and refusing to leave." The guard looked at me, then at Tyler and his friends with their beer coolers. "Ma'am, if he's a resident, I can't remove him. That's a civil matter for the HOA board." I nodded to the guard. "Thank you for following proper protocol." Then I turned to Colleen. "Mrs. Draper, I'll see you at the hearing on Friday. I have documentation I'd like to discuss." For the first time since I'd met her, Colleen Draper looked uncertain, just for a moment, but I saw it. I picked up my towel, walked past Tyler without a word, and left, slow, controlled, not running, just leaving on my own terms. 2 hours later, Colleen posted in the neighborhood group online, "Residents should be aware of individuals who disrespect our community standards. Mr. Morrison at 456 Maple has repeatedly violated rules and created disturbances. Please keep children away." She included a photo of me from a distance. Within an hour, 23 comments appeared, most supporting Colleen, none defending me. Fear spread faster than the truth. I took a screenshot, saved it to my evidence folder under defamation and harassment. Then I made 4 phone calls. Margaret, David, Jessica, Robert Kim, a teacher whose 10-year-old son had been harassed by Tyler. I asked each of them one question. Would you be willing to speak at the hearing? All four said yes. All four sounded nervous, but all four said yes. That night, I sat in my office with the door closed. 64 documents are spread across my desk: timeline, financial records, witness statements, photos, videos, everything organized, cross-referenced, ready. I thought about Friday's hearing. Colleen would sit at the head of the table with her board members flanking her. She'd think it was her courtroom, her judgment to pass. I closed the folder and placed it in my briefcase. The same leather case that had been with me through 200 hearings and 47 major cases. I looked out the window. Colleen's lights were still on across the street. She wasn't sleeping either, but for different reasons. She was worried. I was prepared. And that made all the difference. There was a technique we used in federal investigations called witness corroboration. One testimony could be dismissed. Two looked like a coincidence. Three or more. That was a pattern. And patterns were what juries believed. Thursday evening, at 7 p.m., 6 people sat in my living room under warm lamplight. Nobody spoke for the first 30 seconds. They just looked at each other, nervous, uncertain. Then Margaret Walsh, 67 years old, broke the silence. "I'm tired of being afraid." Her voice shook, but her words were clear. April of last year, she'd planted rose bushes in her front yard with written approval from the previous HOA president. 2 weeks later, Colleen sent a violation notice. Unapproved landscaping. Margaret showed Colleen the written approval. "Previous approvals are void. I'm in charge now." The fine was $150, doubling to $300 when Margaret didn't pay immediately. Then came June. Tyler parked his truck blocking Margaret's garage for 3 hours. When she asked him to move it, he laughed. She called Colleen. "Boys will be boys." Margaret handed me a thick folder. Every violation notice, every email, every rejected appeal. Her hands trembled, but her voice stayed steady. "I filed a formal complaint with the board. Never got a response." I took the folder, added it to my collection. Pattern of selective enforcement and retaliation. David Chen spoke next. 36, software engineer, methodical and precise. In October of last year, he installed solar panels with county approval. Everything legal. Colleen sent a notice within a week demanding removal. David cited Texas Property Code Section 202.010, protecting homeowners' solar rights. Colleen responded by filing a false report with the county, claiming unpermitted construction. David hired an attorney to clear his name. Cost him $2,000. She tried to ruin me because I stood up to her. His hands clenched into fists on his lap. Not violence, just powerlessness turned to determination. I made notes. Abuse of authority, false government reports. Jessica Torres was next. 29, single mother, night shift ER nurse. She spoke quietly, like someone might hear through the walls. In February this year, Tyler knocked on her door at 10 p.m., asking if she needed help. Jessica said no and closed the door. Days later, Tyler started commenting on her photos online. Nothing explicitly threatening, but deeply uncomfortable. Comments about how she looked in her work uniform. Jessica blocked him and reported it to Colleen. "You're being dramatic. He's just friendly." 1 week later, Jessica received a violation notice, garbage bin visible from the street. It wasn't true. $75 fine. "I work night shifts," Jessica said, tears forming. "I'm raising my daughter alone. I can't fight this." I thought about Sarah then, my wife. She'd been a nurse, too. Worked exhausted through her treatment. Just wanting peace. "You won't have to fight alone," I said quietly. Jessica nodded, wiping her eyes. Sexual harassment, retaliation, abuse of vulnerable residents. Robert Kim was 41, high school history teacher. He'd requested HOA meeting minutes last December. A legal right. Colleen waited 18 days, violating the 10-day requirement. Documents arrived incomplete, and financial statements were missing. Robert requested again. No response. He sent a certified letter. Colleen accused him of harassing the board. Then in January, Tyler yelled at Robert's 10-year-old son for riding his bike too loudly. The boy was terrified. "My son was scared to go outside after that," Robert said, voice breaking. Every parent in the room tensed. Priya Mehta was fined for a medical waste bin her doctor required. Tom Bradford, a 22-year veteran, was fined over his American flag. 6 people, 6 stories, 6 instances of abuse and systematic harassment. I looked around the room at their faces. Fear, anger, hope. They'd all been isolated, made to feel like they were the problem. But they weren't alone. They were a pattern, and patterns were evidence. "Tomorrow's hearing isn't a trial," I said. "Colleen thinks it's her show, but it's public. Anyone can attend." I handed out speaking order lists. "Bring your documents. Speak calmly. Stick to facts. Don't attack Colleen personally. Just tell your story exactly as it happened. We're not here to destroy anyone. We're here to restore fairness." Margaret looked at me with sharp eyes. "Jack, what do you do for a living? You organize like a prosecutor." I smiled slightly. "I've spent time in courtrooms." David leaned forward. "As a lawyer." I shook my head. "I've worked with many lawyers." Nobody pushed further. The room settled into a different kind of silence, not fear, something closer to resolving. By 11 p.m., everyone had left. I sat alone in the living room, 6 folders spread across the coffee table. Each one represented a life disrupted. Margaret, who just wanted to garden. David, who'd done everything legally. Jessica, terrified for her daughter. Robert's son, scared to ride his bike. I'd seen every kind of crime in my career. But sometimes the cruelest thing wasn't violence, but the slow suffocation of normal lives through petty rules and unchecked authority. I turned off the lights and went upstairs. Tomorrow, Colleen would sit in that hearing room thinking she controlled everything. She didn't know 6 people would stand up. Didn't know about the documents I'd compiled. Didn't know the quiet man she'd tried to intimidate had spent 28 years learning exactly how to dismantle people who abused power. Tomorrow, everyone would learn that not all battles were won with force. Some were won with patience, documentation, and the courage of people who'd been silent too long. I closed my eyes. One more day. The Willow Creek clubhouse wasn't large. 1 room, long table, folding chairs, windows overlooking the pool. At 7 p.m. Friday, 43 people filled the space. Colleen sat at the head of the table in a black suit, hair perfectly styled. Tyler to her right. Board members flanking both sides. I walked to the empty chair across from her, set my briefcase down, and looked her in the eye. She smiled, the smile of someone who thought they'd already won. But she didn't notice the 6 people scattered throughout the room, sitting quietly, waiting. Colleen picked up a small wooden gavel and rapped it once. "This hearing is now in session." She unfolded a paper, began reading. "Mr. Morrison has repeatedly violated HOA regulations. Unapproved decorations, improper parking, lawn maintenance failures, and pool disturbances. Total fines, $425. Pay within 14 days or face a lien." Tyler leaned back, arms crossed, smirking. Ron Keller nodded. "I support the president's decision." Linda Hayes added, "These rules exist for a reason." Neither asked me a question. "Mr. Morrison, do you have anything to say?" I opened my briefcase slowly, pulled out documents. "Thank you for allowing me to speak. I've prepared a response. It's detailed." I spread the first section across the table. The flower pot measured 16 inches. The handbook allowed 18. Parking photos proved the correct orientation. Lawn receipts showed professional service within variance. The pool incident was a refusal of an illegal request. Each violation is invalid. Colleen's smile tightened. These are technicalities. I flipped to the next section. Let me address something more substantial. During my review of HOA financials, legally entitled under Texas Property Code Section 209.005, I found irregularities. I connected my laptop to the projector I'd brought. The first slide appeared. Greenscape LLC, $4,200 monthly. Registered to Colleen's address. No employees, no equipment, no web presence. Clubhouse repairs, $8,900. No contractor or invoice. Legal consultation, $6,500. No attorney or work product. Over 2 years. More than $40,000 in questionable expenses. Ron Keller leaned forward, staring at the screen. Something shifted in his face. Recognition. Colleen stood. This is a coordinated attack. You're trying to undermine me. Her voice rose. Mr. Morrison, who are you really? Tyler jumped in. Yeah, what's your deal? You some kind of lawyer? I pulled out my credential wallet, placed it on the table. Federal Bureau of Investigation. Director. Dallas Field Office. Complete silence. I'm Jack Morrison. I've been with the FBI for 28 years. I currently oversee federal investigations across North Texas. I let that settle. Colleen's mouth opened, but no sound came. Tyler's smirk vanished. Ron Keller stared at the credential, then looked at Jessica Torres 3 rows back. I watched him pull out his wallet, glance at a photo inside. His daughter, same age as Jessica. His jaw tightened. I didn't reveal this earlier because my position is irrelevant to the facts. Every violation notice was improper. Every fine unjust. Every document is accurate. I'm here as a homeowner who believes in fairness. I paused. But I want you to understand. I know how systems work. I know when rules are broken. I know when someone abuses power. I looked at Colleen. Mrs. Draper, you have 2 choices. First, resign as HOA president immediately. Repay all misappropriated funds. Publicly apologize to every resident you've harmed. I let that sit. Second, I filed a formal complaint with the Texas Attorney General for HOA financial misconduct. I report harassment to law enforcement. Every document becomes evidence. I'd prefer the first option. This community deserves healing, not legal battles. But the choice is yours. Ron Keller stood. Everyone turned. Colleen, I think you should step down. Colleen spun toward him. Ron, you can't. Ron shook his head. I should have said this years ago. I was scared. I was wrong. I watched you hurt people. I said nothing. I voted with you because it was easier. He looked around the room. But listening tonight, hearing Jessica and Margaret and Robert, seeing real leadership, I'm done being silent. He turned to Linda Hayes. I propose we vote to remove Colleen Draper from HOA president. Linda hesitated, looked at the financial documents on the wall, looked at the residents. I second. Ron called the vote. All in favor. Both hands went up. Motion passes. Colleen, you're removed from office effective immediately. Colleen stood there shaking. This is my neighborhood. I built this. Tyler grabbed her arm. Mom, let's go. She pulled away. I'm not going anywhere. Ron spoke quietly. Yes, you are. The vote is final. I collected my documents, closed my briefcase and walked toward the door. Stopped, turned back to face Colleen, not with anger, just sadness. Power isn't given. It's earned through respect. Then I walked out. The night air hit me. Cool, clear. I walked home slowly, sat on my front steps, and looked up at the stars. Exhaustion washed over me. Not triumph, just the deep fatigue of something finally finished. I thought about Sarah. She used to say I always fought for the little guy. I hope I did the right thing. I whispered to the night sky. Footsteps approached. Margaret stopped when she saw me. Jack, I just wanted to say thank you. I haven't felt this light in 2 years. I smiled slightly. You did the hard part. You spoke up. She squeezed my hand. But you gave us the courage. Then she walked home. I sat alone again. My phone buzzed. Email from Ron. Mr. Morrison, on behalf of the board, I apologize. We will conduct a full financial audit. Colleen has been asked to repay all misused funds. Thank you for your service to this community. I didn't reply immediately, just looked up at the sky. 28 years of bringing criminals to justice. But tonight, I wasn't fighting an enemy. I was fighting for neighbors. And maybe that was the most important fight of all. Justice, when done properly. Didn't happen fast. It required time, process, transparency. 2 days after the hearing, the new HOA board, with Ron as temporary president, hired an independent auditing firm. 1 week later, I received the preliminary report. 47 pages. Each page documented a violation. Total misappropriated funds over 3 years. $52,400. And that was only what they could find. The audit report was thorough. Greenscape LLC existed only on paper. No employees, no equipment, no services provided beyond maintaining Colleen's personal yard. HOA funds paid for her landscaping, while the rest of the community contracted their own services. Clubhouse repairs that never happened. Checks written, deposited into Colleen's personal account. Legal consultation fees with no attorney retained. The money went to pay her credit card debt. The auditor's conclusion was clear. Systemic misappropriation of funds, lack of oversight, potential criminal fraud. Ron called an emergency board meeting. The decisions came quickly. Demand that Colleen repay $52,400 within 60 days. File a civil lawsuit if she refuses. Ban Colleen from all HOA activities permanently. Implement new financial controls. 2 signatures are required on every check. Monthly financial reports are published online. External quarterly reviews. A letter went out to every homeowner. Formal apology. Full explanation. Promise of transparency moving forward. Colleen hired an attorney. He sent a cease and desist letter to me personally within 3 days. The language was aggressive. Accusations of harassment, claims of defamation, threats of legal action. I forwarded it to the FBI legal department. Their response came within 24 hours. Mr. Morrison acted within his rights as a homeowner. All statements were factual and supported by evidence. Any legal action against him will be met with full institutional support. Colleen's attorney withdrew from the case 3 days later. Jessica Torres filed a formal police report about Tyler's harassment. The police interviewed Tyler, reviewed the online comments, and spoke with witnesses. Not enough evidence for criminal charges, but they issued an official warning. Jessica also requested a restraining order. The judge granted a temporary order pending a full hearing. Margaret Walsh filed a separate report about the garage blocking incident. The police added it to Tyler's file. Pattern of behavior. The HOA board took additional action. Tyler was banned from all shared amenities for 1 year. Pool, clubhouse, gym, tennis courts, all off limits. The civil lawsuit moved forward quickly. HOA versus Colleen Draper. Breach of fiduciary duty. Misappropriation of funds. Filed in Collin County Court. My documents became evidence, but I didn't attend the proceedings. The lawyers handled it. Colleen didn't appear at the first hearing. Default judgment. The court ordered her to repay $52,400 plus interest and court costs. Total, $58,900. A lien was placed on her property. 90 days to pay or face foreclosure. The story made local news. HOA president accused of embezzling community funds. FBI director uncovers financial fraud in his own neighborhood. A reporter from the Plano newspaper requested an interview. I declined to appear on camera, but provided a written statement. I'm grateful the system worked. This isn't about one person. It's about protecting all homeowners from abuse of authority. Colleen's social media accounts disappeared. Tyler's went private. Colleen listed her house for sale. $680,000. 3 weeks passed with no buyers. Linda Hayes came to see me one afternoon, the treasurer who'd voted along with Colleen for years. She stood on my porch, nervous, fidgeting with her purse strap. I wanted to apologize. I was scared. I should have spoken up. Her voice was quiet, ashamed. I knew something was wrong with the finances. I saw the irregularities. But I told myself it wasn't my place to question the president. She looked at me. I was a coward. I invited her in, offered water. She sat in my living room, the same room where 6 residents had gathered just weeks before. Fear doesn't make you a coward, Linda. It makes you human. What matters is what you do after. She nodded slowly. I volunteered to stay on as treasurer. Transparency this time. Monthly reports are published online. No more hiding. I smiled slightly. Courage isn't about never being afraid. It's about doing the right thing, despite the fear. 1 month after the hearing, an envelope arrived in my mailbox. No return address. Inside, a single sheet of paper, handwritten. The script is shaky, rushed. Mr. Morrison, I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I let power corrupt me. I hurt people who trusted me. I'm selling the house. I'll repay every cent. I'm sorry. Colleen. I read it 3 times. No excuses. No blame shifting. Just accountability. I folded the letter, placed it in my desk drawer, and closed it. Then I looked out the window. Across the street, a neighbor was watering his lawn. 2 houses down, children played basketball in a driveway. A woman walked her dog, stopped to chat with another resident. Normal life. Peaceful life. The kind of life everyone deserved without fear of harassment or retaliation. That was the answer Colleen's letter needed. Not words from me. Just the restoration of what she'd taken. 3 months later, Colleen's house sold, $615,000, below market value. She paid the court-ordered amount in full. $58,900 transferred to the HOA account. The lien was released. She moved to Fort Worth to live with her sister. Tyler went with her. He found a part-time job at a warehouse, a condition of his probation related to the harassment warning. I didn't follow their lives after that. Didn't need to. They had the right to rebuild away from the community they'd damaged. The neighborhood changed slowly, not dramatically, just small shifts. More people attended HOA meetings. Turnout at the next board election was 97%, a record. Margaret planted more roses, this time with neighbors helping her create a small community garden. David installed solar panels for 3 other homeowners, helping them reduce energy costs. Jessica joined a book club with Margaret. Her daughter played freely in the park without fear. Robert's son rode his bike through the neighborhood again, laughing with friends. I kept my routine. Morning swims at the pool. No one bothered me now. Evening walks around the block. Neighbors waved. Some stopped to chat. The book club Margaret had invited me to met every other Tuesday. We read mystery novels mostly. I appreciated the irony. My work at the FBI continued. Cases came and went. But I delegated more, took fewer trips, and spent more time at home. This place, this community, had become something Sarah would have loved. A place where people looked out for each other. Where justice wasn't just an abstract concept, but something you could build together. One evening, sitting on my back porch with a cup of coffee, I thought about everything that had happened. Colleen's abuse of power, Tyler's entitled cruelty, the fear that had gripped an entire community. And then the turning point. 6 people are willing to speak. One hearing that changed everything. It wasn't dramatic like the cases I worked professionally. No armed standoffs. No courtroom theatrics. Just ordinary people finding the courage to demand fairness. That, I realized, was the lesson. Real change didn't always come from grand gestures. Sometimes it came from quiet documentation, from neighbors supporting each other, from standing up when it would be easier to stay silent. Power didn't come from a title or position. It came from integrity, from respect, from the willingness to do what was right, even when it cost something. The sun set over Willow Creek estates, orange and pink streaking across the sky. I finished my coffee, went inside. Tomorrow I'll have more work, more cases, more challenges. But tonight, I had peace, real peace, the kind that came from knowing you'd helped restore something broken, the kind that lets you sleep without weight on your chest, the kind that made a house feel like home. Texas winter didn't bite like the North, but the air turned crisp and clear, 68 degrees. Blue sky stretches endlessly overhead. First Saturday of December. The community pool area transformed into something it hadn't been in years, a gathering place. 50 residents clustered around the barbecue grills, the smell of burgers and hot dogs mixing with laughter and conversation. Children played in the shallow end, despite the cool weather. Their parents watching without the tension that used to mark every public gathering. Music played softly from a speaker. Not too loud. Just right. I stood by the grill, flipping burgers, watching the scene unfold. This was what Willow Creek was supposed to be. What it could have been all along if fear hadn't taken root. Margaret walked over with a platter of her famous potato salad. "You're getting good at that," she said, nodding toward the grill. I smiled. "Practice. Lots of practice." She laughed. It was good to hear her laugh without that edge of worry that used to color everything she said. The new HOA board had made a difference. Ron remained president after a proper election with 97% voter turnout, the highest in community history. Margaret served as vice president. Residents had voted for her specifically because she'd found courage when it mattered. David Chen became treasurer, immediately building an online portal where every homeowner could check finances in real time. No more hidden line items. No more mysterious expenses. Priya Mehta, a new mother, took the secretary position. "Making the community better for the next generation," she'd said. The new rules were simple and fair. Monthly financial reports are published online for anyone to review. Quarterly town hall meetings, mandatory, where residents can voice their concerns. Violation notices required photographic evidence and a clear appeals process. No fines over $50 without a full board vote. Transparency replaced tyranny. Trust began rebuilding where fear had lived. The community barbecue that December brought 50 residents together. Children played freely. Parents laughed without fear. This was what Willow Creek was always meant to be. Ron walked over, handed me a cold drink. "You know, Jack, I've been thinking about everything that happened. I was part of the problem. I voted with Colleen because it was easy. Because I was scared." He paused, watching the families around us. "But watching you, seeing how you handled it. Documentation and patience instead of anger. It taught me something. Leadership isn't about control. It's about service." I took the drink, grateful. "You made the hard choice when it counted. Ron, that's what matters." He shook his head. "I should have made it sooner. But I'm making it now. Every day. Making sure this place stays what it's becoming." He glanced at his watch. "Speaking of which, financial reports for November are posting online tonight. Completely transparent. Every dollar accounted for. That was the new normal. Accountability, openness, trust." As the afternoon stretched into evening, the sun began its descent, painting the sky in oranges and pinks. The temperature dropped a few degrees, but nobody left. This wasn't just a barbecue. It was a reclaiming. Every conversation, every laugh, every child playing freely was a declaration. This is our community. We take care of each other. We don't let fear win. Margaret sat down beside me on a bench near the pool. Penny for your thoughts. I smiled at the old expression, just thinking this is what it should have been from the beginning. She nodded slowly. But it took you to make it happen. I shook my head. No, it took all of us. I just permitted everyone to speak. You did the speaking. You had the courage. Margaret squeezed my hand. Well, thank you for that permission, and for showing us that quiet strength beats loud tyranny every time. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the community around us. 50 people who 3 months ago had been isolated, frightened, and avoiding each other. Now they were neighbors again, friends, a community. The transformation wasn't dramatic or instant. It was gradual, built on small acts of courage and consistent fairness. But it was real. I thought about Colleen and Tyler. They'd moved to Fort Worth. Colleen had repaid every cent. Tyler was working, learning responsibility for maybe the first time. I didn't follow their lives closely. Didn't need to. They deserved a chance to rebuild away from the damage they'd caused. Punishment wasn't about destruction. It was about accountability and the opportunity to become better. My work at the FBI continued. Cases came and went. Criminals were caught, prosecuted, and sentenced. But this, what happened here at Willow Creek, felt different, more personal, more meaningful in some ways. Because it wasn't about catching bad guys. It was about protecting good people. About making sure ordinary families could live without fear in their own homes. That was a different kind of justice, a quieter kind, but no less important. As darkness fell and the party began winding down, families packed up their things, said their goodbyes, and made plans for the next gathering. Children were tired, happy tired, the kind that came from a day of playing without worry. Parents were relaxed, genuinely smiling. The community had found something it lost: trust, safety, hope. I walked home slowly, the sounds of laughter still echoing behind me. Unlocked my door, stepped inside. The house was quiet, but it didn't feel empty. It felt peaceful. I looked at Sarah's photo on my desk. You would have loved this, Sarah. You would have loved these people, the way they came together, the way they found their strength. I could almost hear her response. She always knew I fought for the little guy, always believed that was my calling. I poured a small glass of whiskey, sat in my office chair, looked out the window at the quiet street, lights glowing in windows. Families are settling in for the evening. Normal life, peaceful life, the kind of life everyone deserved. But not everyone got. I'd spent 28 years fighting for justice on a large scale. Organized crime, corruption, major cases that made headlines. But tonight I understood something deeper. Sometimes the most important battles weren't the biggest ones. Sometimes they were fought in suburban neighborhoods, at community meetings, with documentation and patience instead of guns and badges. I finished the whiskey, set the glass down. Tomorrow I'll go back to work. More cases, more challenges. But tonight, I had something better than professional success. I had a community that trusted each other, neighbors who looked out for one another, a place where children played without fear, and parents didn't worry about retribution for speaking the truth. That was worth more than any conviction, any case closure, any professional achievement. The lights across the street went out one by one. Willow Creek estates settled into sleep. Not the fearful silence that used to mark these streets, but the peaceful quiet of a community at rest. Safe, secure, together. I turned off my desk lamp, headed upstairs. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight brought something better. Tonight brought peace, real peace, the kind built on justice, earned through courage, sustained by people who refused to let fear win. And that, I thought as I closed my eyes, was exactly what home should feel like. This is gated drama, where every story proves that behind every gate, there's a battle worth fighting. And sometimes, the quiet neighbor wins. What's your story? Tell us below.